try to be a good man, but life keeps beating me down. I never understood that you gotta learn to swim and you're gonna drown. People think I'm riding high, but I feel so low. I try to be a good man, but life keeps beating me down. Try to be a good man.
Week one's done. We're officially done with week one. It feels kind of surreal to say that when for months on end, you were doing, what was it, previews and predictions every single week. And you felt like you're kind of going crazy with these scenarios. I mean, for goodness sake, you don't realize when you're doing this that you can have a prediction, and as time continues, you evolve the prediction into something completely else. Especially when we're talking about the summertime. I think of LSU as a great example. I had LSU going into basically fall camp as my 5 team in the nation. But if you were to ask me where I had LSU at the start of the summer, they were my number 1 team in the country. It's interesting to watch that unfold. And now we're in the rhythm of week 2's here. Like we're going to recap Miami versus Notre Dame. We're going to recap UNC versus TCU. Of course, we have to talk about both those games as we're in a kind of a weird state with college football. NFL is going to start this week. So we'll get into more of a regular cadence as these weeks come up. But we have Illinois, Duke, Baylor at SMU, Michigan at Oklahoma, Arizona State at Mississippi State, Kansas at Mizzou, aka the border war. We got plenty to talk about. If you don't think that this is a good week of college football, you're just not looking hard enough. Welcome to the Stadium Pulse, ladies and gentlemen. This is a college football show, only college football around here. No NFL, MLB, NBA. It is just college football, as the title below dictates. My name is Tegan Randolph. If you've never seen my face or any of the TikToks or YouTubes around the world, I'm your host for this show. This is all powered by Kretschmann Media. They've done fantastic work with me, and they do fantastic work across the board. We just launched a new show, Dub's Room. Go check out the channel. It's going to be attached here. You can also go check out CEO Sports Show. You can also go check out the Mic Drop. They do fantastic work over there, but I don't want you to be gone for too long because we got to talk about Malachi Toney. You thought I was going to start off with Carson Beck. We're talking about a 17-year-old that went for 6 catches, 82 yards against one of the most dominant man defenses that we have seen in a long time in Notre Dame. Miami looked fantastic, man. Miami looked like they belonged. Miami seemed like a program that was more balanced. The problem that Miami had just last year was an analogy that I've made many times when talking about Miami. Miami last year was just LSU, just a year prior. A Heisman level quarterback and an incredible offense that just could put up points any drive that they wanted. The problem being both Jaden Daniels and Cam Ward knew every single time they walked across that field for warm-ups and had to go into that locker room for whatever entrance, home or away, that they had to be in, it was going to have to be a 40-point out. Their defenses were not going to stop anything. It was Swiss cheese across the board. LSU, they took about 2 years to get their defense back in check. What's more impressive, it sounds like Miami has completely flipped the script on their defense. New defensive coordinators, new refresh secondary. This defense looked like a problem. More specifically, Ruben Bain. Welcome back, Ruben Bain, everybody. This man was a home wrecker, game wrecker, whatever you want to call it. Ruben Bain was incredible to watch. We're talking about a guy that by PFF grades, and take what you want with a grain of salt when we talk about PFF grades. I promise you, I'm taking it with a grain of salt. It's more funny to see this number that one of the tackles for Notre Dame had a 10 pass blocking grade. A 10? Are we kidding? Carson Beck looked incredible. And what leaves me a couple questions with Miami is, I guess, can you take this momentum and carry it to Florida? Because Florida's got this game circled tenfold. We'll get to this game when we do in a couple weeks when we actually get to preview it and predict it. But you have to remember, and for people that don't follow college football year round, I remember this, that Miami beat down Florida in the swamp. Not only did they beat down on Florida, this was the introduction of Cam Ward. Not only was it the introduction of Cam Ward, you had your own players going up to Florida recruits saying, hey, come here. You're going to the wrong Florida school. We just beat down on the team that you're visiting. Come to Miami. So Florida's got this circled. And so what is this defense that's revamped against a Notre Dame's offense that, take it with a grain of salt, truthfully, wise men make observations in week one. Fools make predictions and takes and change everything that they thought they knew about college football after week one. Just because Miami's front seven looked incredible against Notre Dame doesn't mean it's going to look incredible against Florida. But what makes me confident about Miami for the rest of the year is the fact that Carson Beck looked like he was having fun for the first time in what feels like a year and a half. Listen, I was not one to hop on the Carson Beck hate train. I thought a lot of people are just picking and choosing on a lot of narratives and storylines around him. I understand there's screenshots out there. If you really want to learn about the Carson Beck, burnerverse, you can go learn about that. You could talk about the Cavender twins. I want to talk about football around here. And Carson Beck looked like he was enjoying himself. He looked like a guy that was a part of a team that he wasn't a part of 365 days ago. That's a true leader and impact, a guy that has been accepted. Maybe it didn't work out in Georgia. Maybe he wasn't built for the yes soldier, Kirby Smart type of stoic quarterback that he looks for. Maybe he fits better with Miami because he sure does play like it. 20 for 31, 2 touchdowns, no picks, played on time and in rhythm. Yeah, Notre Dame looked like a team that was about to choke away a 14-point lead late in this game. And that's just because Notre Dame, and we'll get to Notre Dame right now, they have the same MO that they did last year. Notre Dame is eerily similar on the offensive side of the ball of what we saw last year. A team that is never going to stop fighting. They're never going to stop. You have to finish the job for all 4 quarters, or Marcus Freeman and this team is going to continuously chip away until they have an opportunity. They did it in the national championship. They did it all across the playoffs. That's what this Notre Dame team can do. CJ Carr went 19 of 30, 2 touchdowns and a pick. Take it with a grain of salt. That's the third time me saying that. But honestly, that was not the best passing performance. That was as much as what we talked about on the show before, where we were like, can CJ Carr be a threat to where that front seven doesn't get stacked and they can't just dominate the rushing attack? Notre Dame's not going to win football games if they're running for 93 yards, which they did on Sunday. The fact that Jeremiah Love got 10 carries is egregious, because I'm not expecting CJ Carr to go throw for 400 passing yards, 3 touchdowns against that Miami defense. That's not what I was expecting. What I wanted from CJ Carr was to be a threat enough that he could be a dynamic quarterback that can maybe scramble a little bit. He showed that, but be a threat enough in the passing attack where it opens up the lanes for Jeremiah Love. And it took way too long for Notre Dame to realize, oh, maybe we could just dump it down. Maybe we could just do a couple screen passes, get him involved, knowing that he's our best player on offense by far. I don't get that. I really don't get that by the coaching staff. Because a guy like Jeremiah Love, who, mind you, hurdles way too much, there's other moves in the skill set that you could potentially run, Jeremiah. It doesn't have to be just hopping over everybody. I think he tried it like 3 times in this game. Now, unfortunately for my team, Texas A&M, Notre Dame gets to go on a bye week in week 2, which schedule makers in college football, that makes no sense. It bothers me tenfold because it's my team. But now Notre Dame gets to go watch A&M play Utah State, which we're not going to preview and predict that game. You know how that game's going to go. But week 3, you get Marcel Reed coming into town. What is this Notre Dame offensive line going to look like against Mike Elko, who's going to throw a lot of exotic blitzes? He's going to throw a couple guys in there. Can they bounce back? I don't think that A&M has the front 7 of a Miami with a guy like Ruben Bain, who I think is going to be a top 5 player in his class. But can they fix the offensive line moving forward? Because that's going to stop all type of playoff talk in South Bend if they can't fix that. Their defense is going to be fine. Their defense had really good moments. I think they just ran into a veteran quarterback that clicked with wide receivers at an unprecedented level. We're talking about Malachi Toney. 6 catches, 82 yards, 17 years old. Not to mention CJ Daniels with the catch of the year in week 1. I think we can say that was the catch of the year. Some of the most beautiful screenshots I've ever seen of him in the air, Odelling it. It was beautiful. Things you love to see. That game was fantastic. We recorded the Sunday show when South Carolina was happening. South Carolina, Virginia Tech. If you did not watch that game, which shame on you. We had 2 games on Sunday. You got to watch at least both of them if you're a real college football fan. And then we had UNC TCU, which we'll get to here in a minute, because I don't have that many thoughts on UNC TCU or anything that you didn't already potentially knew. Virginia Tech pushed South Carolina a little bit. And some of the concerns I do have for South Carolina are still present. Who's going to be let me restart. The things I have concerns, or the concerns I have for South Carolina, are still there. This game did not wipe all the concerns that I have for South Carolina. Virginia Tech just has Kyron Drones, who is inconsistent. Throwing the football, he is too inconsistent to win that football game. And Nick Harbor looked great, 6'5". TikTokers are going to fall in love with the kid. He is the closest athlete that we've seen to like Calvin Johnson. Athlete, not football player. He is just that damn good. I call him DK Metcalf 2.0 for a reason, because he can run 3 routes and he can burn you on every single one of them. Defensive coordinators circle him every single time. Lenore Sellers, he is a game wrecker. 3rd and 13, sheds off 2 tackles like he's prime Big Ben and gets the first down. You can't teach that, nor can you game plan for that. Maybe you could try to tackle better. For Lenore's, it really doesn't matter. The defense played better than I thought, but I also do think Kyron Drones is just that inconsistent that he's going to give you some gimmies. You just have to catch the football when it does open up that opportunity. The rushing attack was inconsistent, and I still think there has to be more weapons to this offense, and we'll see how that goes, because they'll play LSU this year, they'll play Texas A&M, and they play Alabama as well. So it's to be seen with South Carolina. They had some good moments. They had an incredible 4th quarter. People are going to hold on to that 4th quarter and completely forget about the first 3. Last game of week 1. Do we really got to talk about North Carolina TCU? Bill Belichick's debut. Yeah, we got to talk about it. TCU looked incredible. Josh Hoover looked like a guy that game planned for exotic blitzes. I remember distinctly very early into this game, a corner blitz, a nickel blitz coming off the left side. He threw right into it. Wide open corner route for the tight end. Throw into the blitz. That's a veteran quarterback who knows exactly what he's playing against. Their rushing offense looked incredible. I believe they had a transfer running back go for over 100 yards pretty quickly. He had the 75-yard touchdown to kick off the second half. This game was not close outside of the first half. North Carolina fans, you can hold on to that first half all you want. Or real, no, not even the first half. The first drive. Let me clarify. That's all you can hold on to. North Carolina had an incredible first drive. Gio Lopez throws a dime down the left sideline. They seemed like they were getting 2, 3, 4, 5 yards push with their offensive line. People tweeting out, Bill Belichick might be the 2nd greatest college coach ever. I don't think TCU's got a strong enough front 7 to handle the rushing attack that Freddie Kitchens is going to pose. That was one of the most conservative play calling that I've seen in a long time. Freddie Kitchens, how does he get a job? I'm not going to violate too much, but how does he get a job genuinely? 3rd and 12. Yeah, we're just going to run the ball again. We don't believe in Gio. Gio's not going to be able to make a play for us. This roster's not ready. I don't need to tell you that. Go look at the score. You don't even have to watch the game. It's not worth your time to go watch the game. They are not ready. TCU is a good football program. The difference between TCU facing Colorado and this TCU team is the fact that TCU, coming off of a national championship run, lost a ton of players and we're starting new guys. And it just so happens they had to go play a future NFL talent, Shedeur Sanders. I don't care where he got drafted. That was an NFL talent and the future Heisman winner. And in college, two guys can make a big time difference. Mind you, you also have Jimmy Horn Jr. and a bunch of other NFL guys on that roster. I don't think there's a single NFL guy on this North Carolina team. Now, they could prove me wrong. Like I said, it's week 1. I'm just making observations that this roster is not ready. Their play calling is too conservative. It was straight out of the 1900s. That was a pathetic job. To know how much hype and hope was built in that first drive for it to just quickly wither away. It wasn't just a gradual decline. It quickly withered away. Max Johnson looked really good. Glad that he came back from injury. 16 minutes in the show. Gotta get some cold brew. Shout out to Quick Trip. Cold brew on tap. Hit up Crutchman Media Quick Trip. That's the only plug you're gonna get on the show. Just need a little caffeine boost. Let's close the chapter on week 1. How about that? Let's close the book. Let's look at week 2. It's a completely different ball game when we're talking about week 2 compared to week 1. We had 3 top 10 matchups. You had Florida State beating Alabama. You had all these big marquee moments. Clemson, LSU. Hell, we can even talk about the games that we just talked about. Miami, Notre Dame. You can talk about Texas, Ohio State. What does week 2 have? And here's the thing. Before we get into these games, because we gotta have to go pretty quick with these predictions, and some of them are pretty straightforward. Week 2 is a test for who is the real college football fan. Who is a guy that looks at this slate and realizes this is dangerous. It's kind of like you're sitting in the eye of the storm. You're looking around. It's beautiful. Nothing's going on. Yeah, you have chaos surrounding you, but you feel like you get a break. You feel like you have some room to breathe. You're in week 2. Craziness just went down. Incredible upsets. All this hype from week 1. You get to week 2 and you look around and you're like, maybe we get a little room to breathe, because you look at week 3 when you have Georgia and Tennessee, Texas A&M, Notre Dame, a bunch of great matchups in week 3. You think you get a little breathing room in week 2? That is when you get hit. That is when a stop sign comes swinging around from the storm and it pops you in the side of the head. Because there are some sneaky matchups here that we could go look back in December and be like, oh, Illinois lost to Duke? Illinois was the 11th team in the nation. They went 7-5 this year. Maybe this was the game that started that path. You have Arizona State and Mississippi State. Why is Arizona State only favored by 6.5 points? These are the games I talk about. So we'll talk about Illinois Duke. Darian Mensah. This is the real test. You get it early. Illinois ranked 11th in the AP poll, which to my estimation is overrated. The best way you start a conversation about being overrated, underrated is, what are you rated? Illinois. I have them not even in my top 20. So 11, I think they're one of the most overrated teams in the AP poll. Travel over to Duke, Manny Diaz, and that defense with Darian Mensah. Sure, you could go look at their week 1 matchup and say, hey, they struggled for about 2.5 quarters there. Mensah put up incredible numbers. I think this is where rubber meets road for Illinois, because I then look ahead at their schedule and there's some key moments. I think they play USC. That's a key moment to see how real the returning production that everyone was telling me I'm wrong for being low on Illinois, that this returning production with Luke Altmaier and many others, this is the game you prove it to me. Going on the road to Duke against a very talented quarterback. And I'm going to pick Duke here. I love the road spot. I love the fact that they have to bring in that number 11 team. I love the fact that it's a week that the national media is going to tell you nothing's going on. Just watch Michigan and Oklahoma. You'll be fine. Nothing else is going on. There's no war in Bossing Say. These are the games that start to teeter one way. And all of a sudden, the dam breaks and you get 3 upsets that you never thought was going to happen. Week 2 could be like that. And I think Illinois is a team that I think is going to be overrated. And I think they proved me right here. Because I really like Mensa. I love the defense that Duke has. And I think they have just enough playmakers to get a win here at home. Another interesting game to me is Baylor at SMU. Baylor at SMU has more implications than the eye may see. No way Baylor goes 0-2, right? They just played Auburn, watched them live. If Baylor cannot stop the run, they are not going to win more than 7 games this season. Auburn was able to run the ball all over them. SMU has the capability to do the same thing. Not in the same fashion where Auburn had NFL talent on their offensive line. They were going to maul you every single play. They were going to get 3-4 yards of push. The difference that SMU may bring is that home run threat. Because Auburn knew that they could virtually get 4 yards every single play if they wanted to. SMU is going to be able to strike with speed and consistency and that hurry up, get on the line, get ready. They're going to test your endurance. And not only physically, but the speed with it as well. Now, I'm expecting a lot of points here. This is going to be at SMU. With these Texas matchups, it's a road matchup, but it's also not a major drive. Waco's about 2 hours from where SMU is going to play football. Sawyer Robertson versus that SMU defense that did lose a lot of NFL guys. I expect Bryson Washington to have a big game. I expect this to be a shootout, truthfully, because I don't believe in Baylor's defense to correct all the mistakes that they had in just 1 week. And I expect SMU with Kevin Jennings to exploit that. I trust the better football team here, and I'm going to rock with the home team. I think Kevin Jennings, they do have a more difficult schedule. I'm not expecting them to be in ACC title contention, and seeing how the shifts of the conference have already begun with teams like Miami, Florida State, Georgia Tech taking that contender status as Clemson takes a step back, someone's got to fall back, and it might be SMU. But the credit that I gave like Dave Aranda of you're just going to have this super dynamic defense. You're going to be this defensive wizard, this guru. You're going to be able to mix things up. I don't know if I can give him that credit until proven otherwise, because we're now not just last season having a bad defense, but you had the whatever happened with week 1. And it wasn't just the fact that you were outmatched. We'll find out. SMU being number 17. But once again, to my original point, that's another game that you look at and you're like, oh, SMU's number 17. Baylor's a good team. Baylor was hyped up to be a potential Big 12 contender. That could be an upset. In the terms of like the AP poll, that's what I mean. Like you could run into 3-4 upsets that you didn't expect to happen because they weren't top 10 matchups, because they weren't top 25 matchups. Like I said, Arizona State, number 12 in the country. Sam Leavitt, they played pretty good. Sam Leavitt, I believe, had like a 55-yard touchdown. Kenny Dillingham played pretty good. Against a bottom feeder in Mississippi State, you have the Big 12 champion going against arguably the second worst SEC program, maybe the worst, depending on how much you feel about motivated Mark Stoops. Why are they only favored by 6.5 points? Now, I said this about Virginia Tech, South Carolina. And to be fair, for about 3 quarters, until we got to that 4th and South Carolina just pulled away from that football game, you looked at it and you're like, one of the most hyped up teams in the country in South Carolina versus a middle of the pack, bottom type of team in the ACC with Virginia Tech with a coach that's potentially a foot out the door. Why was it only 7.5? I say the same thing with this one. And I don't say it to be like, oh, take it. Take the 6.5. Take the cheese. The bait's right there. Go take the cheese. You won't get hit. Your neck won't get smashed. It won't happen. You got to remember, Mississippi State played this game close. And Arizona State, we really have not found out the answer to, have they been able to replace the production that Cam Scatabo has? Now, Jordan Tyson and Sam Leavitt and their defense, I trust that. I trust that to put up points. I'm curious, do they have that counterpunch? Because there was a lot of weight that was being carried around from Cam Scatabo as a mental side, and I'm going to be able to carry 3 guys to get those extra 4 yards that we need. And Arizona State's very confident. They've spoke ad nauseum how confident they are about this season. What happens when a Giant gets a little blood on their lip because they got punched in the face for the first time in 10,000 years? What's going to happen with Arizona State if they get a little punch on the face? On the road, them cowbells, I'm telling you right now, them cowbells can start ringing, and they can give you some real PTSD. I'm telling you right now, Will Rogers, like those cowbells and what they've done to my A&M fandom, they ring in my ear. Arizona State, number 12 team in the nation, going against an unranked Mississippi State, only favored by 6.5. It's another example of a game where we could be at a recap show next Sunday, and I'm sitting here going, upset. How did this happen? I'm not a meteorologist. I'm not forecasting anything. And we'll talk about it Thursday when I call up my best bets and things like that, and we do some additional work because it is, at the end of the day, still a wider week. I'm not going to pick Mississippi State. Where am I? I'm going to wait. We're going to do that official prediction. We asked some questions around Mississippi State. I want to wait to make that prediction. We have 2 games left to talk about. The border war, which I think is like wild to me that people aren't talking about this game more. I think it's arguably the second best game on this slate. Kansas at Missouri. What are we going to get with Bo Prabula? He's got the job. As unfortunate as it is, the backup quarterback, now I believe it's Sam Horn, injured. Bo Prabula, you're the guy. You got to step up. Ahmad Hardy, this rushing offense that we all projected, a lot of people didn't expect this to be as intense of a quarterback battle as it was. Bo Prabula, you got to be the guy. And you're going to duel off in a rivalry spot against Jalen Daniels, who looks like he is playing the best football of his 6-year career. Jalen looks really good. This offense looks like it's humming. It looks like they basically picked up right where they left off last year. And if you remember last year, this team was originally hyped up to be very good. And they had a very disappointing first half of 2024. Second half of 2024 just was on fire, causing problems. I mean, remember the Colorado game. Just dominance running the football. Pure dominance. And it makes you wonder if they're just the hot hand. I played basketball a lot of my life. If you're the hot hand, there's a different gear. Everything just seems so simplified shooting the basketball. It just seems natural. You're not having to think about anything. You're not going to have to think about your follow through, where your feet are set. It's just natural. And when you're in that state, is Jalen Daniels just going to be a guy that just mows down Missouri? I have the same questions about, what happened with Baylor and Auburn, where is there going to be a problem for Kansas when you have this SEC size and strength and talent? Are they just going to be able to get 3-4 yards every single time? Because that lets you be more aggressive as a play caller, and it lets you just know when things get tough down the line, because this is going to be a close game, in my opinion, that if we need that 4th and 2, that 4th and 1 to turn into a potential game-winning field goal or game-winning drive, we can get that. We have a better chance every single time, every drive, that we can get those types of yardage. Kansas may not win that football game, especially knowing Ahmad Hardy. This could be his breakout game. I could be very much wrong in this, because I'm picking Kansas to win this football game, even though they're 6.5-point dogs. I'm trusting the hot hand here, because I expect Kansas, they're just in the right spot offensively. And I expect them to make just enough plays where Bo Prabula potentially has to throw the ball a little bit more. This is going to be his first real test against a defense that I think is going to be prepared for them. And I expect to trust to the 6-year quarterback to just continue the run. And this is going to be the game that we look back and say, maybe Kansas is Big 12 title contenders. Kansas versus Utah in the Big 12 title game. I can't forget about Texas Tech. All right. We're about 30 minutes into the show. If you're watching this, I'll say this real quick, because we're going to break down Michigan, Oklahoma real quick before we get off today. Thank you for watching today's show. We've had incredible metrics across the board. This is not an easy thing to build up. I promise you, when we get like a year down the line, you're going to be in a completely different setup. Things are going to look different, but that's because I'm always looking to get 1% better with this. I'm always trying to get better as a show host because I care about this so much. I want this to be special. And so if you are watching this, I appreciate you so much. Leave a like, comment, anything to interact, because that's all I want to do with this show is build a community to interact with, because college football is the best damn sport on the planet. Michigan, traveling down to Norman, Oklahoma. Norman, Oklahoma. Brent Venables. John Mateer. This is a game that I think has incredible significance for the hype train of either side of the coin. Let me paint this picture for you. Bryce Underwood, true freshman, one of the most hyped up quarterback prospects in college football history. Goes to his hometown team, Ann Arbor, Michigan, and goes and walks into Norman, Oklahoma, beats Brent Venables, a defensive guru. The sky is the limit for them. They could be potentially Big Ten title contenders, pulling off a win like this. That's how impressive I would be, because Justice Haynes and all these guys, everyone's saying that, Michigan is going to be a good team now. They're going to be a great team next year. That's been the notion that a lot of people have talked about with Michigan. Good team now, great later. Just give them some breathing room to get acclimated to Bryce Underwood and the team that is going to be built from this point forward, because they know they have a title window either starting next year or potentially this year if they beat a team like Oklahoma, who is extremely talented. But for Oklahoma, you have College Game Day coming into town. For the casual fan, this is going to be their introduction to your golden boy, John Mateer, someone that I've been a fan of all offseason. As soon as we started getting to film and breakdowns, oh, man. I apologize, y'all. I just realized I've been frozen. One moment while I figure this out. I apologize. If I've been frozen for a little bit, I do apologize about that. One moment. There we go. I hope it hasn't been that long. Let's restart. If we're talking about Oklahoma beating Michigan, that would be the introduction of the golden boy for Oklahoma football, for everyone. John Mateer. It wouldn't just be the college preview magazine. It wouldn't be the dark horse pick that everyone has made about that Heisman. It'd be John Mateer beating a Michigan defense that everyone knows is pretty damn good at football on their home turf as they prep to potentially go play Texas in Red River, a Texas team that could be 3-2 going into that game, because they could easily lose to Florida in the swamp, especially how they played. There's a lot to break into this game, but I think that the question I have is, how is Bryce Underwood going to go? Let me reframe that. What is Bryce Underwood going to look like when he can't trust his eyes? I'm taking the New Mexico game with a grain of salt. He looked great. He had incredible touch. He doesn't look like a true freshman. He may look like a true freshman going against Venables. Venables is going to confuse his eyes. He's going to bring in a corner when you least expect it. He's going to drop a middle linebacker into a deep third when you go into cover 3 when you least expect it. He's known to do this to quarterbacks. That's why Justice Haynes is just that important for this game. I'm taking Oklahoma to win this. I just trust that this game is going to be eerily similar to Tennessee versus Oklahoma. I'm not expecting points here. I'm really not expecting a lot in terms of the offensive side of the ball. I expect a gross, ugly football game like we saw with Tennessee last year in Oklahoma. That was a game that was projected to potentially have a lot of points with, Jackson Arnold and Nico Iamaleava. I expect something similar here, but I expect John Mateer to have them in a position to make just enough plays because he didn't run that much in week 1. I expect there to be a lot more design runs for a guy that ran for 750 yards at Wazoo. This game's going to be really good. And I apologize once again for the technical difficulties. Like I said, 1% better, right, guys? Right? But I say that jokingly because truly I mean it from the bottom of my heart when we're going to make this show as best as possible. So if you're seeing this late, if you're seeing the medium content, if you're seeing the short form content, I promise you, the people behind it at Kretschmann Media really do want to make this something special. And we're going to work so hard to get to there. We just hit 100 subscribers. So I went about 5-6 minutes over. Once again, guys, thank you so much for watching today's show. I will see you guys on the flip side.